Okay, we're going to try this again. Now I have the microphone on that buffers the wind. So we are at the Fort Craig Historic Site. And let me tell you, it was 4 miles back here off of the road I was on. Felt like 40. It was such a washboard road. But I was talking to the gentleman inside, and he gave me a explanation of why the fort was way out here, what I consider way out here, but it was actually on the path that travelers were taken from Mexico into Texas and then up into New Mexico and then up into Colorado looking for silver, gold, whatever they were looking for. But during the war, um, people were kept getting attacked by the Apache and the Navajo. And so they built a few of these forts up along the path. And one of the places, the battle, took place over here at what was it called? Valverde, I think is what he called it, um, between the north and the south. So we are going to, oh yeah, here it is, the Battle of Valverde. So Fort Craig was down here. You have the Rio Grande. The Confederate route to the battle was here. The Union route went this way. That is the Mesa. And then the Battle of Valverde was on the edge of the other side of the Mesa. And apparently there's a lot of black stone up here, which at some point he said some of the soldiers brought the rock and shored up the fort, because there are walls in there that show that volcanic black rock actually in the fort. And then he did warn to be careful of Mr. and Mrs. Rattle. He said, although because we're under a red flag wind warning, he said they have a tendency not to like the wind. So he said, just stay on the trail and be careful. So that's what we're going to do as we walk back. Now, I know he said that flagpole over there is where the main fort was. So here we got the prehistoric peoples, people that were here. And it is a very desolate, you can see the mesa out there, and that's where the battle took place. And apparently the Confederates actually won that battle, but they didn't win the part of the war because there were so many casualties that there wasn't enough people left to continue the war. So eventually the Union soldiers held out. The fort was never overtaken by the Confederates, and the Union was able to hold their position. And this talks about the early Spanish exploration. So this was all, again, back in the 1540s, that good old Coronado again, the same dude who was up at the Pueblo yesterday up in Bernalillo. So this talks a little bit about the El Camino Real de Tierra. I can't read the rest of the word. Adentro. Okay, so let's walk over and see. He said the whole roundabout was like a mile and a half. If you went to all the outbuildings that are still left. Oh, I can see one of them over here. But he said money is an issue on restoration, because I asked him about, you know, restoration so that we don't lose this part of our history and what happened. And so people, future generations can see what this country was built on, how it was built, and what it's about. This talks about the establishment. And gee, the front page of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Again, this is back in early February of 1848. It was when Mexico ceded what was later to become the states of Colorado, Utah, California, and New Mexico to the United States. So that's the treaty that turned that part of the country that was Mexico to the United States. But as I was saying, he was, because especially what's going on now, budget cuts and all that stuff, he said there isn't a whole lot of money to restore. He said they started and they got one of the walls partially rebuilt. And that was pretty much as far as it went. He said they really would like to have some more of these buildings restored, because his fear is, because of the winds out here, that if something isn't done soon, this will all be covered up by the desert sand, and nobody will know or remember that it's here. So here's one of the buildings, what's left of it, and you can see the black stones. So this is the guardhouse and the sally port. So this was the way in, the main entrance. So it was wide enough for horses and wagons and mounted troops to pass through. And that, he said, was the main flagpole. That's kind of tall. So this is the parade grounds and the enlisted quarters. That's what used to be out there. As you can see, it doesn't look like that anymore. That's what it looked like. Now this is what it looks like. So as you can see, the sand has covered up a lot of the walls, because the lower walls are pretty much all that's left of stuff. I mean, we're talking things that happened back in the 1500s. Guardians of the Trail. Let's see what this says on the other side. But I think I saw a little lizard. So this was the ground plan of Fort Craig. It remained basically the same throughout its history, although the use of various buildings changed periodically. The flagpole can be used as a guide to view the layout of the buildings. So the Sally Port, which I just showed you, was the main gate and the guardhouse. Number 2 is the commanding officer's quarters. 3 was the warehouses. 4 was the defensive bastions. 5 was the enlisted men's quarters. 6 was the sinks or latrines. 7 was the quartermaster's store, the salter's store, and offices and workshops. Number 8 was the corrals for the animals. Number 9 was the old hospital, married soldiers' quarters, the laundress row, officer, and later telegraph. Number 10 was the new hospital. Number 11 was the officers' quarters. And number 12 was the adjunct's office. And we're here at the flagpole and the entrance there. And a very, 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 very tall flagpole. No flag. It would be ripped to shreds in this wind. Okay, so you can still see horse stuff out here. I wonder if somebody has a horse nearby that comes out here. Whew. And let me tell you, driving in this wind is not easy, especially when you have a small car like I have. It gets buffeted all over the place. So, let's see what we got over here. So these were the commanding officer's quarters, and these are the walls that are left. So it looks like it was a pretty good sized fort at one time. The first commanding officer quarters in 1854 were located across from the parade ground. But by 1869, the official ground plan shows that the post commander resided here. So it switched periodically. Let's see what this says. Okay. So they want you to walk around it, but not in it or through it or touching the walls because they are so fragile. So this would have been their living quarters, as you can see, is now nothing but sand and crushed stone. And another thing of doing this now is I keep seeing the sign and I always wondered what it led to. Now I know, and I know I don't have to come back in here. Yeah, please stay off of the walls. So there's another building because they're unstable and of course they're irreplaceable because these are the originals. This is what's left of when it was built in 1854. Again, that adobe mud and stones, which of course erode over time if somebody isn't keeping up with them. So that was another building there. Oh, there's a fairly good sized one up there. Still has a lot of the wall to it. Let's go up there and see what that is. And this one you can see the back wall is still standing, but a lot of the, so this was the storehouse. This is where they kept their food, their supplies. It was never designed as an official supply depot, but often served as a central location for disbursement of supplies to other posts. So that's where they kept that. But see, once I find these places and examine them and go through them and get the history, then I know I don't have to go down that bumpy road anymore, except to get out. And of course, if you guys ever happen to come this way, you'll be well prepared and know that the road, wow, that's a long room. Doesn't say what it is though, just says stay off the walls. But as you can see, things are growing inside of it now, which will eventually overtake what's here if they can't get the funding needed to rebuild some of this stuff. And that's a shame. Now, this is part of America's history. It made us who we are today. That's another one of those guardians of the trail. Earthworks Wayside. I wonder what that is. So we're just going to walk up here and find out. Would have been, I mean, I saw pictures of what it looked like because they had a rendition on a computer in there of what it looked like when it was at its finest. And of course, you see what it looks like now, all these hundreds of years later. It's kind of hard to imagine because it doesn't look anything like it. Oh, this we get to climb up some stairs. Looks like somebody's been in here with a four-wheeler or something. Oy. Okay. Oh. The Indian Wars. So, picture of the scouts, the Apache scouts that were employed by the United States Army. So Fort Craig was here between 1854 and 1884. So it's a war between the U.S. Army and the Native Indian peoples of the region. We have the mountain over there. Nice drop off. Oh, now we can see what this long one is. It's a, oh, I see. So this is where they came to fight off attackers, because this is the defensive bastions. So this is where they hunkered down with their rifles and shot at anybody coming toward them in the winter of 1861 and 62. During its 31-year history, in its early and late Indian Wars and the Civil War, no foe ever attempted to test the fortifications. So the Union was able to hold their ground. But a lot of lives were lost. The Apache campaign. That's San Juan, a Mescalero Apache chief. It gives a little bit of the background of when the Apache came into this part of the country. And these are about the Navajo campaigns. This is Navajo Chief Manuelito. So it talks about how the Navajos helped the Pueblo people during the Pueblo Revolt against the Spanish in 1680, supported them when they became refugees during the Spanish reconquest 10 years later. Conversely, the Navajo also raided and feuded with the Pueblos off and on over the years. But their perpetual enemy of the Navajo was the Spaniards. But they did adopt a lot of Spanish methods for raising sheep and horses and growing peaches and other crops. They still kept their warring against the Spaniards. A lot of history here. Mountains over here, over there. I don't think we can get to the where the battle took place from here, because that looks like that would be one heck of a walk. And I don't know if there's a way to drive there or not. I'm going to have to look a lot of this stuff up when I get somewhere where I can recharge my computer. Because a lot of this stuff is, even though we learn it in grade school and junior high and high school, if you're not living in the areas where this took place, it kind of doesn't, you think it doesn't affect you. It doesn't have anything to do with you, but it does. Just like the Battle of Gettysburg. That was a horrific battle. And though I didn't live in Pennsylvania at the time, we visited. My parents made sure we went to a lot of these sites so that we would know what happened. It's kind of like a history lesson in person. And when my grandma decided to go back to school to get her GED, thanks to my aunt who was a adult education teacher, she lived through most of this stuff. She went to the USSR when it was the USSR. And they were watched very carefully on who they talked to, what they said. And they definitely made sure that they did not talk to any reporters of any kind. She was at the Berlin Wall. Her family was from Germany. her mother was German, so was her father. Um, so she grew up, of course, in a German speaking household in Michigan, but she lived through all of this. She was born in 1902. So when she went to school, history for her was easy because she was there. So she passed with flying colors, which was kind of funny because everybody else was struggling. And they would ask her, well, you were there. What happened? What really happened? Because what really happens a lot of times is not what you hear about on the news or read in books. But when you talk to people that actually lived it, it takes on a whole new meaning. So that's why it's so important that this legacy of what makes the United States so important. Looks like we have another sign coming up. And I'm sure there's stuff buried under these mounds. But again, when you run out of money to excavate, which is what happened at that Pueblo that I was at yesterday, they reconstructed one of the kivas, but they're losing a lot of the other ones because there's no money in their budgets from the federal government to do anything. So this one says civilian life. So it's talking during its heyday between the 1854 and 1884. It was isolated and rustic for soldiers and civilians alike. Loneliness, tension, and tedium were all forces to be reckoned with. So was social stratification. Officers and their families never mingled with enlisted men or with hired civilian workers. And the guy at the visitor center said even back then, the closest town, what did he call it, San Muriel or something like that, is like 10 miles away. And so the soldiers would have to ride their horses there to get supplies. He says the other closest town is Socorro, which is where I just came from, and that's 40 miles away. And then Truth or Consequences is farther south, which is another like 20, 24 miles away. So on horseback, that takes a long time. So, and he was saying even with him, when he goes to get something, it's an all-day trip. So, okay, so let's see. But I could just, you visualize, is there an Indian hiding behind something somewhere? And I don't make fun of that lightly because I am part Indian. So, but again, stereotypes, because just as easily it could be, the cavalry hiding, or the Union soldiers, or the Confederate soldiers, or a bunch of outlaws, because this is desolate area out here. And back in the 1800s, it was probably even more desolate. Okay. Coming up on another marker. Be kind of cool to see what was really here. Visualize it. Well, this one's got a little bit of stone. See, and there's that black stone he was talking about that came from that mesa over there. Please keep off the wall. Well, that's all that's left of this poor wall. So let's see what it used to be, because it looks like there was pieces of it over here too. And here's some more down here. Oh, this is talking about the New Mexico Volunteers. Had you stood here at Fort Craig on a cold February morning in 1862 while the Civil War Battle of Val Verde began to take shape a few miles away, you probably would have found yourself amidst throngs of volunteer soldiers. This is probably where they put up a lot of the tents outside the fort, because 5,000 people would not fit in the actual grounds of the fort itself. So here, let me get a picture of that. Ooh, the pay was good. You got $13 a month and a bonus of $100 for 3 years stints. Wow. and we complain about the money we're earning now. That puts a whole new light on things. Okay, let's see. I don't want to get lost, so I'm trying to keep my eye on the flagpole over there. Looks like there's a trail that goes that way. I don't see any markers, so right off the bat, so I'm not heading down that direction, because I can tell there was something over here. There's a wall there. There's another wall over here, and another one over here. I wonder if at some point there was a gate. That wall goes back quite a ways. And this wall starts here, and it goes all the way down this way. And it looks like it continues way down there. So this is kind of a pretty cool little side excursion on my way headed towards Silver City. I'm not sure how much farther that is. I know Truth or Consequences is about 20 some miles. Oh, there's a long, so we had that big wall over there that went that way, but I can see a wall over here too. Oh, this was the corral and stables for all the animals. That's why it's so big. Good grazing on the surrounding plain, plenty of hay in the stable area for the many draft and cavalry animals required by the fort. Horses and mule herds were often herded along the river when not corralled here. And the river, from what he said, is down there by that mesa. He said it's been turned into an aqueduct now, but it's the Rio Grande. But in this area, it was turned into an aqueduct. And we still have more of that black part of the wall here. That leads back up to the thing. What does this say? Oh, this is actually a trail, which I don't know if it takes you down, but it's, from what that sign back there said, it's 2 miles down to Val Verde, and I'm not walking 2 miles down that direction. So we're going to go ahead and go back up this way. So this one says company quarters are this way. So this was a pretty good encampment that they had here. I mean, if you had 1,500 people full time here with and like 2 or 3 different stores, you know, mercantile, general store kind of like thing. Sutler's Row. This photograph was taken in 1867, looking east toward the lava bluffs across the river. The Powder magazine in the left center was completed in 1863 with a floor 3 feet below ground surface, heavy vertical post walls, and a thick cap of earth plastered with locally made jaspi. So this was the guy who provided personal items and trade goods to the soldiers. And then he was ordered off the post and he set up shop in buildings north of the fort walls. Oh, I wonder what he did. Not too often, I would think that people got kicked out of a fort and out to defend for themselves. Okay. So this is pretty much, it looks like, except for that trail that who knows where it led, and I wasn't going to try it. At least not this late in the afternoon. So we're headed back up to where I started. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the tour of Fort Craig. And if you're so inclined to learn more, look it up. That's what encyclopedias are for. Or I guess in this day and age, Wikipedia. I still prefer encyclopedias. But you use what's available. And if you decide to come and visit here because you love the outdoors and you love adventure and you love history, then this is a good place for you to stop and visit. Let's see what this says. Oh, the company quarters. Buried. Can't even see them. Walls are buried. But that's what it looked like. It was designed for 2 different companies, with barracks 2 in number built of adobe in the form of hollow square, each enclosing a plazeta, are occupied, the one by white troops, the other by colored troops. So they had 2 separate barracks. For shame, for shame. Anyway, that was back then. Oh, that was written by the Assistant Surgeon, U.S. Army. So this is where their barracks were. We already looked at that. I'm not sure where that goes. Oh, it might be that roundabout trail comes back out here. But we want to get back up here by the flagpole because I know that was the way in. So that is the tour of Fort Craig. And if you ever happen to be in this part of New Mexico, it's on I-25. Well, actually not, because you have to get off of I-25, go like 7 miles down another road before you turn off onto this gravel road, which is, it says it's a 4-mile jaunt back to here. It felt more like 40 miles because you can only go a few miles an hour. The road is so washboardy bumpy. If you're in a regular car, it's gonna jar your nerves. But if my little car can do it, so can yours. So we are back at the flagpole. I am going to stop the video now, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the history lesson and the tour, and have a very blessed day. And who knows where I'll pop up next for another On the Road Again video. So you guys have a beautiful day. Remember to walk in beauty. Bye for now.